A young man stands in his bedroom. It just so happens that today, the 13th of April 2009, is this young man's birthday. And so on for 8,122 more pages. But this isn't 2009, 2012, or even 2016 anymore. Nobody's gonna read all that. So, what if the story were much, much shorter? This video will be going over all the ways the characters of Homestuck could speedrun beating Lord English, any percenting the story of their own lives. For the sake of fun, we will be ignoring the whole alpha timeline thing. For our first run, we have SP8der Percent. The branching point of this route is simple. Dave covers the dead crow with a blanket or something, so that Jade never prototypes it into his sprite. Meaning, when future Dave prototypes himself, Dave's sprite is literally just Dave as a sprite. No wings, no feathers, and no sword through his chest. From there on, he can just keep doing his thing for a while. I see no reason why Dave's sprite can't fill the exact same role he did as a bird. Sprites can fly anyway, and based on Nanosprite's ability to make ovens and cookies using your sprite magic, I have no doubt Dave could still summon a sword. It doesn't particularly affect the route, but what this change does mean is that Jack Noir never gets his wings or sword, making him much less of a session-ending threat and more of a murderous nuisance. Until Becquerel prototypes himself, of course. Then Jack quickly gets back on track. Later, though, Dave's sprite and Jade's sprite meet on the battlefield and hang out, since everyone else is currently doing everything else. But, unbeknownst to either, the two of them chilling together is extremely dangerous, from an existential perspective. Since Dave's sprite has only been prototyped once, any intentional contact he makes with Jade's sprite will irreparably fuse them together into a squared sprite. Anyway, that happens almost instantly. At the same time, the non-sprite Jade meets her shaving cream-based end, and the loyal Bec Noir takes her to her quest bed. When Jade god-tiers during the events of S Cascade, she stops existing as a singular person. In her place, a new entity is born, an unfathomably powerful being I can only think to call DJ. DJ is made of Jade, the Witch of Space, Dave, the Knight of Time, Becquerel, a Green Guardian, and the power of a sprite squared. DJ can effortlessly move to any point in space-time, but before they do anything, they want to create something. Returning to Jade's house, DJ collects the Junior CompuSooth Spectagoggles, computerized glasses that let one see any point in space. Then, they find Dave's timetables. Taking off their perfectly round shades, DJ alchemizes the three items together. Now, not only can DJ go anywhere in time and space, but they can see all of it too. From this point, beating Lord English is trivially easy. On a whim, DJ can throw him in a black hole or toss him in a timeless void.
Sp8der and Hella Jeff Percent.
When Dave makes the
Sp8der and
Hella Jeff
camera,
the one that auto-generates comic strips of whatever you take a picture of.
In this timeline, he goes further and combines it with some
Amber.
This new Sp8der and Hella Jeff camera does the same thing, but it seals the subject of the photo inside the comic.
So,
Dave snaps a photo of Lil Cal, and
Nothing bad ever happens again.
the Timeline Keeper. This is the same sprite-using, god-making shenanigans as in Sp8der Percent, but done by the trolls instead. It would go like this. Aradia's sprite never mixes with the head of the Frog Temple. Instead, it somehow mixes with Terezi. They can do whatever they want, all the way until Aradia's dream self dies and god tiers to the tune of Megalovania, just like in the canon comic. But Of course, she doesn't god tier normally at all. At the mixture of Aradia, the Maid of Time, and Terezi, the Seer of Mind, a new entity is born. Terazia, the Timeline Keeper. Though she doesn't have the power of a Green Guardian like DJ did, she's still a nearly unstoppable force. As a Maid of Time, she can time travel and freeze time. As a Seer of both mind and time, she can see every potential choice and its eventual consequences. Which is to say, she can see any even remotely possible timeline. And finally, as a Maid of Mind, she can create choices and outcomes. And, at her power level, she can more than likely skip creating individual strands of cause and effect, and just create entire timelines at once. Meaning, if she wanted, it would be extremely simple for her to just pick the most optimal timeline in terms of speed and happiness. Most, if not all, enemies could be taken care of before they were even made. Sp8der Percent. Okay, so, for this route, two things are necessary. 1, Vriska's spider mom needs to end up in a sprite. 2, Vriska's dream self needs to end up in the same sprite. I promise this is the last time I'll talk about sprites. Then, Vriska god tiers as she did canonically. But because of the whole spider thing, her ascension goes extremely unusually. She never gets her wings and therefore can't fly, but her speed, jump, reflexes, and agility have been greatly boosted. Her strength has immensely increased too, even past what a normal god tiering provides. Beyond that, she can now stick to walls and shoot webs from her wrists. Spider-Man. Vriska becomes Spider-Man. This doesn't even help defeat English any faster. I just thought the idea was sick. That's all. Muse Percent. Jane Crocker, one who can create life. Roxy Lalonde, one who can steal back that which has been lost. Dirk Strider, one with power over the soul. Jake English, one who can be a seemingly endless well of power when he wants to be. These 4 kids, grieving the death of their friend, put their powers together and make their move. Joining hands, they form a circle. From the depths of the void, Roxy and Dirk summon the spirit of Calliope. As the churning, ethereal mist begins to take shape, Jane and Roxy begin forming a living body in the image of the projection before them. Jake, encouraged by how well the plan seems to be going, fills this new body with boundless hope and boundless power. With a flash of light and a force throwing the kids backwards, the work is complete. Floating there on Roxy's balcony is Calliope. Just not the one they had in mind. This cherub is taller, older, much older, and wearing the god robes of a space player. Her previously empty eye sockets are now filled with gently revolving galaxies that now gaze upon her 4 unlikely saviors. Even she could not have predicted such an outcome as this. It would seem her dear brother has some competition on his hands now. Scratchless. A Scratchless run is simple. The Dancestors, the Beforeign trolls, fail to scratch their session. Alternia never exists, and none of the various Earths or even humans exist. And, even if Caliborn somehow survives, Lord English could not. Remember, English is also made of Gamzee, Equius, and Dirk's autoresponder, all inside Lil Cal, none of which could exist. Reader Percent. Hussie Percent. Don't write Homestuck. And finally, the cat skip. For this strategy to work, something needs to happen to connect Nepeta to her Rogue of Heart class spec. The most reasonable thing I can think of is, during their scrub session, either Solix or Aradia hooks her up with some sort of item that has souls trapped inside. It could be a bottle, a cursed book, whatever. This item is alchemically combined with her weapon, creating the Reaper's Claws. Blades with the ability to steal the souls of her prey, each one making her stronger. Or, if you prefer, she could simply God tier. Either way, she gains the ability to take souls. After that, victory is simple. Sometime on the Meteor, Nepeta pounces, getting into a playful catfight with Lil Cal. Her Reaper's Claws equipped, she completely accidentally takes the soul of a God tier, completely immortal Caliborn out of Cal, swapping the cherub from one Heart player's prison to another's. And so, because of a cat girl, Lord English and Doc Scratch never get to exist in this timeline. Except that's impossible, because many people have already talked to Scratch at this point. Apparently, the way reality decides to deal with this little paradox is with a hard cut. Anything Cal, Scratch, or English did before this moment in relative space-time happened. Anything after will not. And so, the route's complete, but there are implications to consider. Nepeta now has at least half the power of Lord English at her disposal. So, at the very least, this means when she attacks Sober Gamzee in HOMESTUCK, she's going to win in this timeline. But let's say the timeline somehow corrects itself. Nepeta dies, Gamzee lives, everything's chill. Until Dave Peta Sprites squared. The personalities and powers of Dave and Nepeta rolled up together with the additional power of Lord English and that of a squared sprite, thus creating yet another cosmically powerful entity. Wait, didn't I promise I would never mention sprites again? I think Noelle Holiday as a troll would be best friends with Nepeta. You can't tell me otherwise.